They told me I had to pick one thing. No. Diamonds are multifaceted, and so are we. It's about time we let all the parts of us shine. How do we climb out of the box and fully embrace our own authenticity? I'm Karaleigh, and it's time for the Multi-Passionate Mama podcast, where clarity and creativity go hand in hand.
Welcome back to the Multi-Passionate Mama podcast. Today, I'm going to start off by telling you that this is a welcome back for the second time because I just finished recording this entire podcast, and then I realized 25 minutes into my recording that my microphone was blinking, which meant that it was muted for 25 minutes of my recording. So I'm going to start over and we're going to talk about authenticity and showing up as you really are. And it's really frustrating. That's what I'm going to tell you right now, right off the bat. I'm sitting here. It's the day before this airs, and I haven't had a chance to record this yet because yesterday I was getting my daughter off to girls' camp, and her room was so messy that I was like, you don't get to go to girls' camp. Yep, I'm sitting here with Joshua right next to me, and I was telling my daughter that, like, your room is so messy, you don't get to go to girls' camp. So we spent all day cleaning her room, trying to get it ready for girls' camp. And anyways, so today is when this is happening. And, you know, the name of the game is showing up real and true. And like, life is so messy. And what's more is that now that have recorded this entire podcast once, I have officially used up Joshua's allotted patience for sitting here next to me while I record a podcast. So we're going to see how much I can get through of my notes and what I have for you today, because I want to talk about what we're building as entrepreneurs and as moms. Like, we're building this amazing legacy as, you know, podcasters and with everything that we're doing. So 2 weeks ago, I went to the Her Turn to Podcast Summit, which was hosted by Cathy Heller, and it was in LA, and it was really amazing. So we're talking about building a legacy, and I wanted to go through some of my incredible notes of like all the amazing things that I learned at this summit, and I'm going to have to go through it quick because everyone's impatient with me today. Because I already have spent an hour down here going through my notes, summarizing this all for you really quickly. So let's see what I can do in the next little bit. The first note that I wanted to talk to you about was that people are never filled up all the way on love. And this applies to all of our clients, to everyone that we're trying to serve as, you know, service-oriented businesses. Like, we are talking to people out of love. And it's so easy to get distracted by all the other ways in which we serve people. But the real way that we serve our clients is through love. It's all about filling them up and filling ourselves up, right? The more that we can show ourselves love, and is how that we can show our clients love. And one other aspect of this is that as podcasters, and even as business owners too, but as podcasters, we often want to talk to big, amazing guests, people that we look up to. And then we get really tongue-tied and we struggle with talking to people that we perceive as like better than us and really incredible. And the truth is that all we have to do really is pour into them, because people are never filled up on love. The next thing was about letting go of all of the supposed tos and surrendering to the incredible journey that this life is. We need to show up authentically. We need to show up as who we are. But this authenticity journey it's a lifelong process of unfiltering ourselves, because since we were little kids, we've been putting on these layers of who we're supposed to be and the ways in which we are supposed to show up in the world in order to be good humans, in order to be, yeah, good. I wish we could replace this word good with honest, because so often we're choosing this goodness and this belonging, like this quote unquote goodness, I should say, this idea of how we're supposed to look and how we're supposed to fit in, instead of this integrity, instead of this honesty. And if we could just be honest with ourselves and with the world, we'd find that everyone else is dying for that. Everyone else is looking for that. They're craving that. We can't keep going in this fake world that we're surrounded in. Everyone is looking for truth. They're looking for people to be real, but we're surrounded by these computerized, filtered versions of humanity that are not real instead of truth. I saw this woman get up on stage, and her name's Sarah Milken, and she was the most real human I've ever seen in my life. And it was this incredible example of like, that's what authenticity actually is. And I sat there and realized that I've never actually been authentic in my entire life. It was incredible. As podcasters and as business owners too, but it's the audacity to tell the radical truth and what it's actually like to be you. Because the more that you're talking about what it's really like to be you, the more people see themselves in you. And it's not just about talking about the bad things, which don't get me wrong, the bad things, we don't share those enough. We cover all of it up. We kind of sit in the murky middle where we're like, let's just be gray all the time. Let's just sit in the middle of the road, the neutral parts. But instead, if we were willing to talk about the really tough parts of life, people would be like, oh my gosh, I've been there too. But also, we need to be more willing to be authentically amazing, because that's actually the truth of who we are, is we are authentically brilliant. We are authentically powerful. We are authentically amazing, incredible, like phenomenal human beings, but we hide that part of ourselves too because we don't want to, hurt other people's feelings. And that the more that we're willing to be that, the more that we're willing to be confident, the more that other people, that we subconsciously allow other people to be confident too. Confidence is contagious. There's actually these mirror neurons in our brains that when you show up in a certain way, other people are mirroring that. So when you show up as confident, you're not making other people less confident. You're helping rise the energy of the room with your incredible energy. It's really incredible. And it's a process to become the best version of yourself. So allow that process to happen and allow yourself to be wherever you're at right now. Because I know that, like, that was one thing that I found really interesting about this podcast, like, conference and summit, was that just even a few months ago, 6 months ago, a year ago, I would not have gotten out of this summit what I got this time. It was just a couple weeks ago, but I would not have gotten out of it what I got this time. It's because of all the work that I've been doing, this whole journey I've been on, that I was able to get so much out of it. And specifically the things that I did get out of it. I mean, I went to this conference on a Monday and a Tuesday. I traveled home Wednesday, and on Thursday, I rebranded my entire podcast. I just, even a month ago, was holding so tightly on to Seeking Sunshine that I couldn't let it go. It was such a part of my identity, of who I was and who I was showing up in the world, that I couldn't let it go. I couldn't let myself show up as more powerful because I was so clinging to this past version of myself. And so it's incredible to me that I was ready for it now, when I know that earlier versions of me wouldn't have been ready. You have to allow yourself to take the journey and to be ready for whatever comes whenever you're ready for it. It's been an amazing journey, and I've loved it. And you have to recognize, like, loving all the parts of you. One question that I really loved, that really put this in context for me, was, how do you know? How do you know if you're really being authentic? How do you know if you're really being real? This question comes up in your mind of, was that too much? Was that overboard? Was that me just like going way too far? That's the question that comes up in your mind when you're really being you. And that was the question that came up for me last week when I was airing my mini-sode last week about my kids and all the wild summerness. It was like, oh, Am I being too much? No, that's actually real. That's the real, authentic Karaleigh being allowed to come out finally. And the truth of it is that we have so often felt like we were too much for this world, too much in our lives because we're so used to being in that middle gray part. You're not too much. And if someone's telling you that you're too much or you're getting that vibe from somebody, that's because of them. It's not because of you, it's because of them. And they are the one that has the issue, not you. I love the quote from Frozen. People make bad choices when they're mad or scared or stressed. It's because of them and their issues. People who are whole, people who are fully in their joy, are not the ones who are out criticizing people. They are just living in happiness. They are just fully enjoying their lives. So if somebody is saying things, or if you're getting that vibe, if they're in their low energy, that's because of what they're going through and because of their experience. And, we can have so much sympathy and we can have so much empathy, even, but don't take it on. One thing I actually wrote down from the summit was don't step into her cage. I have a whole episode about, seeing our cages are calling. We all have something in our lives that feels like a cage, and we'll sit in the back of our cage and we'll just look at those bars and feel trapped. Don't step into somebody else's cage. If you have found the way to work around your bars and you are feeling that freedom and you're feeling like, I know how to work through this, and you see somebody else and they have their own cage, you can love them so, so much, but you don't need to take on their negative energy. You really don't have to. You're actually serving them so much better in your high vibe, loving, happy energy. It doesn't serve them at all to step into their cage. It doesn't serve them. I love this intention creates effect. We often downgrade our intentions because we are looking at the results, but actually there's often so many results that we don't see. We don't always get to have, a clear picture of all the ways that we've helped people or made an impact, like the ripple effect that we have in this world. We often only will see the first layer, or we won't see it at all. Have you ever noticed how when a drop of water hits and it makes that ripple, right? There's like a big gap between the first drop and the first ripple. We often don't have the ability to see the first ripple. And then like the subsequent ripples will be really close to that like first one, but the first one's really far out from the drop. We often don't get to see the impact we're making in the world. So your intention actually can have such a huge, powerful effect, even if you don't realize it. It's your frequency that is carrying the information. And we don't always know like the power that we have, but we really do. It's in the fun, it's in the joy, and in the high vibe, the energy. That's where your success really lies. And you just have to trust that you're having the intended effect instead of feeling like a failure because you don't always see the tangible results. One thing that I love, we heard this in the summit, but also we've heard it so many times before, is like those goals that you have, the things that you want in your life, we want them because we think they're going to make us feel a certain way, but you can choose to feel that way now. So, like, one thing that I've always really longed for is I want to be on the big stages and I want to be using my voice and I want to be having that big impact. I want to feel like a rock star. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can choose that perspective now. Like, I can choose to feel that powerful and that magnetic and that lightness right now. Be the person that you want to be. There's so much power in visualizing your future self, your best version of yourself, and asking yourself, how would she act? How would she be in this world? And then start stepping into that power and being the best version of you right now. and allowing that for yourself because that's who you really are. And it's also really powerful. Just surround yourself with people who see that in you right now. That's like the best thing you can do for other people is to witness them in their full authenticity and then cast the vision for them of the best, most amazing version of themselves, even when they aren't that. Especially like that's the greatest gift you can give to your spouse and your kids is to see them now, even when they're not acting as their best and highest version of themselves, to hold the vision for them as their highest, most powerful, most beautiful version of themselves. I love that so, so much. Now, I don't think I've said this yet, but one thing about authenticity is that it's not just our pain that's authentic, it's our power that's authentic. Maybe I did already say this. Like I said, I've recorded this twice now. I'm not really sure. Also, I did a Toastmaster speech earlier today that basically said like half of this. So if I'm getting mixed up, I do apologize. That is part of it's part of me authentically showing up is showing you my process of like, I've already done a Toastmaster speech on this today. Already recorded this once today. It came out really clearly once. I've got Joshua next to me who's playing videos on my phone next to me that's scrambling my brain just a bit. I have to leave in just a few minutes to take my son to his gymnastics class. And life is messy. And we're still here and we're still showing up. And we all are just doing our best. And like you get to be all of you. And all of me is all of these parts all wrapped up into this messy, sparkly, you know, chaotic bundle. And we just show up as we are. And it's beautiful and messy all at once. And we get to be all of it. So I'm going to talk about a couple more things here. Authenticity shakes the earth. And we can't keep going like you won't survive in your business if you keep showing up with filters and inauthentically. Like it just doesn't work because I can't even speak. Inauthenticity causes burnout. Like it's exhausting. Like it's not sustainable. It's this lifelong journey of peeling back the layers of who we really are. You are actually the thing that's in your own way. It is truly an inside job of learning who we really are, of learning what's meant for us and how to just surrender and let what's meant for us come right to us. That's what it's really, really about. I wanted to mention this one part that was really touching to me, that this line that I wrote down in one of my notes from somebody that spoke at the summit. As entrepreneurs, as business owners, and as podcasters, I don't know, I think a lot of you are probably podcasters. It's I loved this line so much. And it says sometimes you're the only person that's telling them that they're capable of doing more. Sometimes it's really easy to look around at everybody else in our world who seems like they're doing so much more than we are and having so much of a bigger impact. But we don't really realize that sometimes we're it for that person who's in our circle, but who isn't in the same circles as we are. Just because we see all the people that we see doesn't mean everyone in our circle sees the same people that we see. One of the great analogies from one of the women at the summit, and again, I wish I could remember who it was, but I have like one string of notes that's a summary of all of my other notes. She talked about the mountain, and this might have been Stephanie Gass, but I can't remember for sure. She talked about being on the mountain, and we're halfway up the mountain, right? This metaphorical mountain of success. We're halfway up the mountain, and we are looking up the mountain of success at all the people who are further than us. and we're looking at them and we're longing to be where they're at. And all we see is all the other people who are further up the mountain than we are. And we are speaking our content to them, going, I wish they would see it. I wish they would see everything I'm putting out. But actually, our content should be for the people who are lower down the mountain than we are, the people who haven't made it as far up as we have, the people who we can help because we've made it as far up the mountain as we have, and we can turn around and give them a helping hand up. That's who we are here to help. When they look up the mountain, they see us. We are the people in their world that can be cheering them on if we will just choose to look down the mountain. And that's not to say that we look down on them. That's to say that we could be cheering people on instead of spending all of our time and attention looking at the people who, we adore and that we wish we could be as good as they are. Like, instead, we could be helping other people. Instead of focusing on our shortcomings, we could be focusing on all the people that we could be helping. I hope that makes sense and came out right. It's so important that we are using our perspective in the right way, because that is really our greatest point of power. It's in our perspective. We have so much opportunity to choose where we are looking. Are we looking up the mountain? Are we looking down the mountain? What story are we telling ourselves? Because there is always somebody that you could be helping. And that doesn't mean that they can't help you in other ways. That doesn't mean that in some mountain they're not further along than you. Like, there's always a way in which, like, it's mutual, and that, like, we're all on the same level energetically, and we can all, well, I guess that's not, I don't know. There's always ways that we can help each other, but you have gifts to give, and we all have different strengths. So how can you be helping other people? That was kind of the point of that. One of my very favorite things that was said was, be the only. Oh my goodness. And I'm wishing I could remember her name right now, because I went and followed her instantly. And now I need to go look every single one of these people up because they were all so incredible. She was saying that we have to stop comparing ourselves to other people because we are all so unique. We are all individuals. And every time that you're comparing yourself to somebody else, like, it's really unfair, because they have an entirely different story, an entirely different background, an entirely different skill set than you do. So stop comparing yourself and just be the only. Something that was from the very beginning, because this was kind of in the middle slash end of the summit, but at the very beginning, Amber said, she said, I'm just an Amber. I'm being an Amber. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm just being a Karaleigh. So I want you to just be a you. Be the only you. Having your unique journey that takes you the way it takes you. Your story is yours. It is unique, and it is going to take you how it takes you. And you don't need to compare it to anybody else's, because they all have their own journey with its own twists and turns too. But yours gets to be an adventure and a learning curve just in its own way. You get to bring both your gifts and your broken parts to the table. And the thing is that your audience wants both of them. The people who are watching you grow, your friends, your audience, your clients, everybody wants both of those parts of you. That's what makes you endearing. That's what, like, you don't have to be completely an expert and perfect in everything. It's actually the people who have flaws in movies that we cheer on. When somebody is presenting a movie, like a heroine in a movie, they don't put up somebody who's perfect. That's the villain. When they want somebody that the audience is going to love, they put somebody up that is really flawed, that makes a lot of mistakes. So don't forget to bring your broken pieces to the table too. It's those quirks, it's those authentic parts of you that you think nobody wants to see. They do, because they see themselves in you. They see themselves in you when you show up real, when you show up with those things that you might think are flaws, are bad, are not good. That's that's when they see their flaws in you and they feel like they have permission to be their whole selves too, both the good and the bad, all of it together. When it's just one or the other, that kind of makes life boring. We want to see both your amazing parts and your broken pieces because that helps us realize that we get to be whole humans and whole humans have both. So show up with all of it. One thing I loved was the most wild thing that you can do is to really love yourself. I just so many times people are like, "Oh, it's so selfish to love yourself." The more that you love yourself, the more that you give other people permission to love themselves. Most wild thing that you can do is to love yourself. And in my opinion, real authenticity is self-love. Like showing up as the true deepest version of you, that is actual self-love. That's the most real way you can be yourself. And then the most true way that you can, help other people to love themselves is to lovingly witness themselves, loving themselves and being their most authentic selves. Because you cannot outsource self-love. You can't look to other people to love you and call that self-love. You can't find self-love in chocolate. You can't find it in massages. You can't find it in all these superficial things. You find it by accepting your full self, both the broken parts and the beautiful parts. That's how you really find self-love. I just Terri Cole was there, and she was one person who I was like, Terri Cole's coming. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited for Terri Cole to come. Terri Cole is the Boundaries boss, and she is phenomenal. And she was talking about loving every version of yourself. And that's something I've really, really struggled with over the years, is really, really loving every version of myself. Because I lost 100 pounds after weight loss surgery about 4 or 5 years ago. And I look at pictures of myself and I'm like, I have such a hard time loving that version of me. We have to love every version of ourselves because every version, all of those iterations of us, that's what led us here today. There's strength and power in all of those pieces of us. And I absolutely loved when she said that the truest definition of forgiveness is giving up the possibility of a better past. That was like a mic drop moment. And I'll say it again. The truest definition of forgiveness is giving up the possibility of a better past. Oh, and then resentment means you need a better boundary. If you're feeling resentful, again, it's all an inside job. And resentment means that you need to have a better boundary. There's something you could do about it, even though the auto, processing thoughts is that it's somebody else's fault. There's actually, you have the power there. You can do something to change it. The other, Patrice Washington was the other person in that part of the summit, and she was phenomenal. And she said that wealth, the actual like original definition of wealth, was the condition of well-being and happiness. That was another mic drop moment. And your business will only grow to the extent that you are willing to heal. So, like what? Those were so good. And then Cathy Heller, again, my favorite, was saying that you have it in you to speak truth to power. And like, what? We all have it in us to speak truth to power. How can we be more authentic and speak more truth to power? We need to let the people in our lives be the hero of their own stories so that we can be the hero of our own story. We can choose ourselves at every moment. Right now, you can choose yourself, because the more that you do that, the more you allow other people to do that. And they deserve to, and they should. Everyone deserves to be the hero of their own story. we tend to choose belonging over authenticity, and that is such a tragedy. Because if you don't belong to yourself, you don't belong to anybody. So as you're building your life, as you're building your business, and as you're building your podcast, choose to be authentic. And I know it's a process. It's a layered journey as you peel back all the ways in which you suddenly realize, oh, that wasn't really me. That was something I was taught of how I'm supposed to look in the world. It's a journey. But the more that you show up as the real you, the more you allow everyone else in your life to do the same. So that's my challenge to you. How can you show up more authentically today? How can you build a life that you don't have to run away from? How can you build a business that you love being in, that you don't have to hate going to every day? How can you build a business that just lights you up from the inside out, that clients are just magnetized to because they see the real you? They see your soul, your essence just lighting up. A business that brings you life because it brings other people life. That is what we all, I think, are longing for, is more joy, more authenticity, more truth. So much more truth. And it starts from the inside out, being more truthful with ourselves. Let's build that kind of life. It starts with us. Thanks for coming, guys.
Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Multi-Passionate Mama podcast. I know that we can never be told too many times how amazing we are, so in case you haven't been told today, you are a freaking rock star. When you let yourself shine, you allow other people to take off their filters and shine brightly too. It's about time someone gave you permission to be all of you. If you enjoyed this show, please leave me a review and hit that subscribe button. I know you want more of this. Sharing is caring. Let someone you love know how incredible they are by texting them the link to this episode. They'll feel so good just knowing that you thought about them. And lastly, if you want to know more about my courses and coaching, be sure to check out my website for up-to-date details on everything I have available. It's KaraleigHgarrison.com, and the link is in the show notes. Always remember that you are a diamond. Don't let anyone dim your sparkle.